hello and welcome. Today we are doing a machine called Certify, and it is a Active Directory machine from Hack the Box. And yeah, let's just get into it. We attack it the same way we do every other machine, and we use their methodology. And yeah, let's go. So I will pretty much just let this one finish, and then I will get back to you. But we can immediately see that SMB is open and DNS is open and stuff like this. So and just check the domain name, add that as well. And yeah, I will be back when it's done. And there we go. We can see that the scan is done. So in this particular box, we are granted initial set of credentials because it is simulating a breach scenario, just like on the OSCP. So we can add some nodes right here. Judith Mader and Judith09. So we can really just pretty much start by seeing if these are valid credentials, which I would think they are, of course. Judith09. They are valid credentials, so let me edit this, and that's the host. With this IP, so that it can resolve. There we go. And then let me also add this in the background like so. So when run jobs, it is running there. Nice. So I would like to just start simple by checking the shares that we have available to us. So these are all default shares, so nothing too interesting. Let's go through the Nmap scan, see if we have any interesting thing available to us. So we have LDAP on 636 and 389. Kerberoasting, of course, we know it's the domain controller and Active Directory. We have DNS, we have RPC, we have SMB, which we just checked, and then a bunch of default stuff. We also have InRAM as well. Other than that, nothing really interesting. So I would like to get all of the users. So we can do that by doing the -- users, and we will also see in the description. This is always a good idea to do. And then we can pretty much just make a list with the user sum. It's also probably faster to just use my one-liner for it. So we can do this. And then we will have all of the users in here. There we go. Remove these for now. And there we go. So now we can test basic things like asset roasting. Now the actual box is called Certified, so I would imagine it's something to do with the ADCS, Active Directory Certificate Services. So we will definitely check that, but I just like to show a general methodology and not be too assumptuous, because that's a more useful way to actually prepare for the OSCP, in my opinion. So we have the domain controller IP right here. The user file we call users. We can output that into hashes. And the domain is certified-hackthebox, like so. And yeah, let's see. So none of these have pre-authentication enabled, so none are vulnerable to that. Let's do the same, but for Kerberoasting. We don't really need that. Let's see if anything is vulnerable to Kerberoasting. And we do have one user right here. Let us add that to a hash, like so. And then let's start cracking this hash. it is identifying the right hash type, but it did not manage to crack it. Now, I like to check with 2 other lists as well. So, one of them is in passwords, like so. This one right here is huge. It did not manage to find it. And then there is another one in common passwords as well. Let's see, passwords, common passwords. I like checking this one right here. And then also this one right here. So if none of these crack, then yeah. Then I'm not particularly interested in Kerberoast, because it's most likely a rabbit hole. Now, granted that we don't really have any credentials in the share, we don't have astroproasting or Kerberoasting really available to us. The next thing that I would like to check is with Certify, right? So, I've improved my methodology a bit when it comes to Certify. So let me show you. So, you can check with the vulnerable and standard out, and it's good, but you will gain more insight if you don't use vulnerable and you know what to do with the data, right? How to parse it. So I'll show you that next. So once again, the user is Judith Mater. At certified to tag the box with Judith09. And then let's do it like so. So it will look for vulnerable templates in this domain. So it seems to actually be parsing. It seems to actually be in certificate authority in play right there. Because if it immediately can't connect, then we know that it's not really a certificate authority, right? So this is a good sign, but let's see if anything is actually vulnerable. And if there's no path that we find with Certify, then I would like to check BloodHound, right? So immediately we cannot find any certificate templates. Okay. Now, Kerberoast, again, we only need to check once. For each user, it makes sense to check the vulnerable template again and again, okay? So that's just good to keep in mind. Now, this is what I wanted to show you. So we could do something like this, where instead of using vulnerable, we can do this, where we specify we want it in a TXT format, and then we want it as certs dot whatever the output is, okay? So it will spit out all the templates that it can find, whether they are vulnerable or not, and it will give us the information, right? So that's very useful if we actually know what to do with it and how to parse it, and not just be immediately overwhelmed. That's why I made this one-liner right here that is incredibly useful. Essentially what it will do is that it will cat the file with -n to give numbers so we can easily parse it. And then it will grep for the enrollment rights, aka who can do what with this template, right? Who can actually manipulate the templates and make them abusable to some extent, right? These are the type of users or objects we would have to get access to be able to manipulate the objects to give us further rights, okay? -I is just case insensitive, -c is just this line and 4 under it, pretty much. So we look for involvement rights, so we can find which users or objects has access to manipulate the templates. And then we grep the output of that. -v is to ignore all of these things that come in at the output, right? -I is case insensitivity again, and capital E is regex. So that essentially allows us to perform all of these in one by using these pipes, right? So all of these things we don't want in output, and then I simply grep for this dash right here. And that's just to look at all of the actual domain objects. I'll show you. If we do like so, we will see only the things. So I already found what I'm interested in, because in the enrollment right, this is the only pretty much field. Now, if it said enrollment rights, then we had more to look into. But this is a possible attack vector, because this is not default. And also, the reason why I'm excluding these is because these should be able to manipulate the template regardless, so it doesn't really change anything. It wouldn't be a vulnerability, right? So it's pretty much calling like the vulnerability that root can read the root file, right? It's not a vulnerability. They're supposed to have these rights, but this is not a default Windows object, so it's either a user or a group. But yeah, so we can use gedit and look at certs, open it in the background. And since we see that on line 56, it says that, we can get more context again. So let us open it like so, go to line 56, and we will see that the enrollment rights are these users again, or these objects. So this user probably, or a group, and then these groups right here, are able to essentially use the certificate 0, and the template name is certified authentication. Now the EKU, or extended key usage, is essentially what this template can do to some extent, and client authentication is very dangerous. It allows you to authenticate to pretty much any user. But yeah, this won't tell us directly what the ESC number is, like the vulnerability flag. That's why if we manage to get to, for instance, this user right here, then we can run it with -- vulnerable again, and it will show you exactly which ESC type it is. And then from there, let me show you. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I just want to explain it, because a lot of people get confused with this stuff. So when we run with -- vulnerable later, we will be able to see which type of attack it is, right? So EC1, right, EC2, there's even ESC16. I think that's the highest number it goes to at the moment, but yeah. We don't know which ESC it is yet, but we know that this user right here is non-default, this as well. And we should be aiming to potentially get access to them. So yeah. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but let's open up BloodHound to see if there is any actual path to get there. I don't know if there is, or maybe this one right here is possibly the previous, but let's find out. So, unless we run it like this, we wouldn't be able to get these insights, right? So it's very, very useful. And again, instead of going through like 1.3 thousand lines, we were just instantly able to jump to like, okay, enrollment rights, this user is non-default, interesting, okay, let's see if we can reach it. So, let me go to BloodHound in my notes. Whoops. There we go. Right. So let's use net exact like so. Remove all of this, because we don't need to parse the user. BloodHound operates over the LDAP protocol, and now we can do like so. So it will use these axes to essentially grab all of the data from LDAP queries of the entire domain, and it will help us visualize it, right? That's pretty much what BloodHound does. And then it will ingest all of the data that we have inside the SIP, and yeah. So the data is now there. We can now copy this data and then move it to temp, so that when we open up BloodHound, we can actually open it in the browser without having to run the browser session as root. So let me just get all of this ready. And once it's properly up and ready, just like that, we can now open up BloodHound. What am I doing? It should be at localhost 8080 when it's up, but it takes a little bit of time, even though these logs are showing. So maybe if I try again now, there we go. So the default username is admin, and then you'll be getting those credentials right there, which you will have to change. So let me change them. So let us ingest the data that we just got with netexec. They are in temp, like so. Let me upload them and be right back when they are done. So now the data is ingested. So there we go. So the first thing that I like to do is that I like to go to the user that we have access to. In this case, it is Judy. And then simply just mark Judy as owned. There we go. And I like to go to Cypher queries. These are dangerous permissions. So these are saying these are normal groups to have that. Kerberoast interactions. As Kerberoast, we want CNA. And we will see one Kerberoastable user, which we did not manage to crack the hash of. So the next thing that I like to do is that I like to check the domain admins and the shortest path from owned objects. And then after that, I like to manually just go through all the users and look at their outbound rights. So let's see. So far this looks promising. So let's see. Yes. Okay. So these are not just random groups she's a member of. These are groups she's not really a part of yet, but she has right owner over the management group. And this group has generic right over this management service user. And that user has generic all over certificate operator. Now, that looks very, very, very promising, because if you remember, in our output earlier, we had a object, whether it's a group or user, it's probably a user, called operator CA, certificate authority probably, as a part of the certificate 0, with the template name certified authentication, which can perform client authentication and server authentication, but yeah. So that looks very, very good. Now, we don't know if it's guaranteed going to be the same user. Operator CA. It's not the same as CA operator, which is a bit strange. We can see if there is operator. Okay, there we go. So it seems that the Certify tool is looking at the display name, operator CA, when it's doing this form of output. So that's awesome. So that's awesome. So the goal from here should be decent to clear. It's to get to this user right here, and BloodHound is feeding us a path to do so. So that's awesome. So let us simply just go from a person we already have access to, and then let's work us all the way to here. And then after that, after we manage to hopefully get access to this user, we can likely perform some attacks using Certify. At least that seems very, very likely so far. So you saw how likely, or you saw how useful that one-liner was earlier, right? Where we saw all of the templates, but yeah, good stuff. So we have right owner over this group. So let us just work us up. So to change the ownership of the object, you may use impact the owner edit example. So again, we can essentially grant ourselves Judith. We can grant ourselves as the owner of this group right here. And then after that, we can add ourselves to this group after we have made ourselves the owner of the group. So we give ourselves the permissions. Verify that the user was successfully, and then we can verify that that actually happened. And then we are essentially part of this group. And then we can work our way to the management service user. So let us attempt that. So we go to Linux abuse because I don't have a shell on Windows, and if you can do it on Linux, then why not? Now this tool is a part of the Impact suite, so we can do like so. The attacker in this scenario is going to be the Judith Mater. And the victim in this scenario is going to be the management or the target rather. Management. So the domain is certified.hackthebox. The user, the user is going to be Judith.mater, like so. And then password will be Judith09. Let us attempt that. Owner, unrecognized argument. Okay, it's new owner, it seems like. Yes, let's try that. So let's just try with new owner like so. That worked well. We can simply add SMD nodes as we go. Then the next step is to, now that we have made ourselves the owner of the group, is to add ourselves to the group. So we can use, let's say, yeah, so we have to give us the rights. Even though we are the owner of the group, we don't have the rights to do so yet, which is a bit funny. But let's see. Impact at diagonal edits, action rights. Right. Would be right members. And then the principal will be Judith Mater. The target, let's say, the target distinguished name will probably be this. And then it wants the domain, controlled user, and a password. So I believe this looks correct. Let's attempt this. That also worked well. So now we gave ourselves the correct rights to be able to perform this. And now, let us just add ourselves to the actual group. So the target group will be management. So the group and a target user, yes. Dash E will be the domain, controlled user. Alright, so certified hack the box. Judith Mater. And then Judith 09. And then this is the main controller. So we can just put the IP like so. That seems to work as well. And then we can do this to verify that it worked. So members, target group like so. Let's try that. And there we go. So now we see that the Judith is a part of this group. Awesome. So now we've essentially gotten one step closer. We have now been able to move from Judith into this group. And now we can look at this right, because we're now a part of the management group. So now we can try to pivot into the management service user. So let's once again. So this is essentially all happening because of the outbound object control, right? So you can see that the management has a outbound object control as a generic write permission over this object called management service. But yeah, let's look at the generic write. So we can either perform a targeted Kerberoast on the management service. Now, if I remember correctly, we already have a hash for the management service. Yes. So that's not going to be too useful. But we can, however, perform an attack called shadow credentials. Now, you can use PyWhisker, but there is also a way you can do it with Certify, which is more convenient. So let's see. Shadow credentials, Certify. There we go, something like this. So the account in this scenario will be the management service, I believe, and a password for the user we currently have control over will be Judith, tier 9. And then certified dot hacked box. Let's attempt this. And it's trying to get the TGT. And then from here we'll be able to get the empty hash if this is successful, which it seems like it will be. We can use something like the PyWhisker as well, suggested. It just takes a lot longer and it's more convoluted. And this is just a lot simpler. Successful restore the old key, anti-hash, but it gives nothing. And the reason for it is because this is happening over the Kerberoast protocol, and there's a clock skew error, which is a classic. So, simplest way is just to go to, let's see. There we go again. Hard date and target like so. You will try to synchronize with the target clock. And let's try again. And there we go. So this is the empty hash of this user. So this is awesome. So now we have already successfully pivoted from the Judith into the user called management, and from the management abusing the rights over the management service user. And we have now been able to use a shadow credential attack to be able to get the hash, the empty hash of this user, right? Because we couldn't crack the KRB-TGT Kerberoast hash, but this hash will be able to perform attacks like pass the hash and actually just directly authenticate. So we can look on BloodHound to see if this management user can authenticate. Okay. So it is not in the administrator group, like a local administrator. So I don't think like SMP will give us a shell. RDP I don't even think is open. Can double check. 3389, it's not open. But we do see that 5985 is open, which is Veneram. And this user is part of the remote management users. So I do believe that we can get a shell with this user. So we can attempt that. Now, I don't think it's actually the path, even though we can do it, because the because this is the other user that it leads to. Let's see, the CA operator, but we can just see if it works. And I will try this path first, and And if it doesn't lead anywhere useful, then I will definitely try to pre-bask this machine right there. So management service, and then the hash will be the, whoops. Management service, and then the hash will be this. This should work, yep. So now we have a shown. So non-immediate useful users right off the bat that I can see. But that's okay. Let me continue with the path that I had in mind, but it's cool to verify. So this user right here has a generic write over another user called CA operator. The one we looked at when we looked at Certify, that looked incredibly interesting. Can. But yeah, let's continue with the path. Generic all. So I believe we can do something similar, yes. So this group has generic write over this user, and this user has generic all over this user. So we can pretty much perform the exact same attack. So let us just do that. So Certify. This time we will be using a different user. We will be using the service management. And this time we will be using a hash. So hashes. And since it is an empty hash, we can actually authenticate with it, which is awesome. And then the account that we're targeting this time is called CA operator. Let us try that once again. Let's see, did I do something wrong? I misspelled the username. It's management service, not service management. Let's try that again. This looks a lot better. And there we go. We got another hash. So this is really awesome. So now we can check with the Certify. So we can try with this new user. And then we can do the hashes flag, like so. And the DCIP of target. And then we can look at standard output, like so. And then we can use the vulnerable flag. I think I forgot to find right here. So now it's trying to find any vulnerabilities. And because of our earlier recon, I do think that it will most likely find at least a template that's going to be vulnerable. Because this doesn't tell us the ESC1. Now, if you know every single interaction when it comes to Active Directory certificate services, it is possible that you can look at all of this output and then know that like, all of these writes corresponds to ESC14, etc. But that's an insane amount of knowledge that I think few people just know intuitively. But this tool luckily tells us that in this instance, it is vulnerable to ESC9. So that's awesome. So I guess I'll put this in a 1.txt just to have it somewhere. And then yeah, ESC9 is the vulnerability that we will be focusing on. So other prerequisite may be required for this to be exploitable. See the wiki for more detailed thread. And in my notes, this is the reference that I like to use. Nope. For not BloodHound. For Certify. I like to use this reference right here for different attacks, because it typically just explains it decently well. So let us go to ESC9. That is the vulnerability that this tool has managed to map out. There we go. So no secured extension on certificate templates. So let's say it can be exploited in a couple of ways. GPN manipulation. If an attacker has control over an account, user principal name, attributes, etc. through generic wide permission, and that account can enroll in the ESC9 template. If that's the case, which I believe in our case that is the case, because if we go back, we have a user right here, which has generic rights, or even better, generic all, over this object or user right here, which can enroll in the ESC9 template, right? Because it is vulnerable to this template right here. So this is great. We're definitely on the right track. You can temporarily change the victim account UPN, so user principal name, to the same account name. So we can essentially change the UPN to be an administrator. We can request a certificate as the victim account. It will contain a manipulated UPN, but will lack the SID secured extension. Okay. So there's a validation check that is kind of missing, it seems. So we're essentially managing to trick the server into making it think that we are administrator by requesting a false template of sorts. At least that's how I roughly understand it. Not sure if that's the case or not, but it doesn't matter as long as we can perform it. Then we can revert the user principal name, change on the victim account, use to obtain certificate to authenticate the KDC or Key Distribution Center, finding no SID extension and operating in compatibility mode, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. The attacker can impersonate that account. Okay. Again, this is the case right there. Same output we had. Let us try to perform this. So, let us change the values as we go. I don't personally like these new lines right here, so I will just remove them. So the first step is to read the initial UTN, so user principal name. Okay, so let's see. Of the victim account for restoration. So let me go up again. Yeah, here. If an attacker has control over an account's UPN through generic web permission, and that account can enroll, and the attacker can. Okay, so I think in this case then, it it is the management service, because that one has control over, has generic all over the CA operator. And CA operator is the one that can request this template. So if I understand it correctly, this would be the user. And this will be the hashes. So let's see. Hashes like so. The domain controller IP like so. And then a user, the one that we want to essentially trick the server that we are running as the administrator through manipulating the template or the certificate, will be the operator. Let's try that at least. Okay, so that worked. We're reading the attributes of CA operator, and the SAM account name and the UPN is CA operator. So let's update the UPN to the administrator, okay? And then let's do the same there, okay? So the user will be this. The password will be a hash. Like so. The UPN is administrator, and the victim will be the CE operator. And let me once again just fix these new lines, I don't like them. And then let's make it the right tool name. Let's try that. So it successfully updated it. Awesome. Let me double check if that actually worked by reading it again. Why did it time out? The box died for some reason. Okay, let me respawn it up again and I will continue. The box did not die. It was just my VPN being unstable for some reason. But yeah, now let's run this command and now it actually reacts. And we can see that the SAM account name is the same, but the user principal name is now administrator. So that's cool. We have now modified that. Now the victim account has its UPN. Yes, it does. If needed, obtain credential for the victim account. I don't think we need this because we have the credentials. Step 4. Yeah. Request certificate. Request certificate as the victim user. Okay. So this time it will be from the CA user, CA operator, I believe. The quote-unquote victim. But that's why we needed to obtain credentials if we didn't have it. But we already have it because we used the shadow credentials attack earlier and managed to obtain the empty hash. So let us attempt that. Let me once again just change it like so. Also, I will not be using K. That's for Kerberoast authentication. We have a hash. So target. This is where I need some information. So okay, so I believe from this one, where I run the vulnerability scan, here I can find information that I need. So here I need a fully qualified domain name. I can find that in the DNS name right here. And then the CA, which is the certificate authority. I can find that right here. And the template is called Certified Authentication. So yeah. They're using Kerberos like this. I will not be using that. So for me, it will be more like this. I will not be using a password. I will be using a hash. And we will be making this request from the quote-unquote victim user. Which is the CA operator. Hashes. This will be CA operator at certified.hackthebox. I think that might look correct. Let's attempt this for now. So if this works, it will create a certificate and a private key. And it then, awesome. So we did all of that correct. So now we will revert the victim account CPN before we try to authenticate. Okay. Let's do that. And I believe that since we are reverting this one to its original state, I think we would have to use the user that we changed it to begin with, and that was using the management service. Let's at least test that. To me, that makes sense. Account. Hashes, and then the target there, the UPN will be the original state. Okay. So that will be CA operator. Let's certify and hack the box. And then EA operator, I believe. That seemed to have right. Let me try reading that again. It is now updated again to its original form, but we have written down the certificate in the form where it has the administrator as the UPN. So now, finally, it suggests that we try to authenticate. So let's try that. This is the most important part. Target the administrator PFX. Let's say I'm scared that I've done something wrong. But let's try. I feel like this should be administrator. I might have done the mistake earlier. That's not good. But let's try going to it regardless. So let's do with this one, I suppose. This feels very wrong. Username. Administrator, domain. Yeah, that's not good. I must have done a mistake somewhere. Let's see where I did my mistake. So note. So let's say it should be in the Certify one. I think this one should never been... You want to make the... Did I even do something wrong? I'm unsure why I don't have a administrator key. Let me copy this regardless, and let's do it again. I have the note, so it should be decently fast. This should be an administrator PFX. Okay, let's try again. So we read the certificate. It says CA operator. This should change the certificate. Let's reread it. It should say administrator. I believe this should give me the administrator hash or the administrator key. Yes, it does. I don't know what happened then. And then now this will change the UPN back. So then if I do this, it should say it's a normal user again. If I just simply read it, it does. But I should still be able to authenticate like so. Let's try that. I think they should work. I don't know what I've done, but let's see how it goes. There we go. I don't know what I did wrong. But yes, that does work. Awesome. So let's try with administrator. Hashes. Capital H. There we go. So yeah. This does work. I don't fully know what I did wrong at the start, but it's fine. Hopefully that was really education regardless. Try to explain it as well as I could. And yeah. Let's now dump some hashes remotely for some fun, and I really hope you enjoyed this video and learned something useful out of it. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and best of luck on your journey. Now, if you enjoy how I teach and you enjoy this video and you want to take the OSCP, then what are you doing not being in this course? It's over 15 hours long, and it covers everything that you need. If you're only watching the videos on YouTube, you're missing out a lot, because it's over 15 hours of content. You will get access to the VIP section on Discord, where you can ask me any questions and you can study alongside all the other students in our course. Right now, you will also get access to this checklist right here, which will cover at least 95% plus of all the attacks and all the techniques that you need to know for every single section. Not only initial access, but AD, pivoting, Linux, and Windows privilege escalation. And the goal for you is to reach proficient or at least basic competence on all of them. That's one of the things. We also have this entire roadmap right here, where there's a bunch of action steps and a bunch of cheat sheets inside all of these hyperlinks that I can't show you in this video. But once you have completed all of them, you know for a fact that you will be ready to get into the OSCP exams and absolutely crush it. If that sounds interesting to you, to get all of this in 15-hour plus of video footage from someone who has OSCP, who explains different attacks and techniques and methodologies, it's going to be invaluable to you. Now, some people are confused with the offer. If you're interested in the notes, these are the notes that you will constantly see me use in the videos, right? They're pretty much recommended to go hand in hand with the course, and I use them constantly in the course itself, right? So I think you'll find it extremely useful. That's also why we have the third offer, which is the bundle, where you can buy both of these together for a discount. I hope that clarifies things. Best of luck on your OSCP journey. I really hope this will be massively useful to you. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.